Walk us through the way you see the world. Grab your brush and let's learn about the woman who's got the skills. All get around no matter how you use it.
Okay, so now we are going onward with our watercolors. One of the neat things about watercolors is that, you know, if you don't like what you've put on the page, oftentimes you can just erase watercolor. I think people don't realize, or you can just rub it out with water, and I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. But watercolors don't cost very much. You know, this pan, I would think it's less than 10 bucks, and a little goes a long way. This has lasted for several years. You can still see lots of watercolor on it. You might bequeath your watercolor pan to one of your peers after you're finishing this class, have a legacy to someone else. Or you might keep it because you're so excited about costume designing that you want to draw and paint more costume designs in the future. So, first of all, you want a brush like this. The brush is probably a little bit more expensive for you. You want a big enough brush. This one says a size 12, but paintbrushes are like shoe sizes. But you want something, here's my finger, here's the brush. And you know, you can see, you know, it's fat and round here, but then it goes into a point. And I think you can probably get one of these for about $8 or so, maybe a little less. The nice thing about this is that when you want the brush to go wide, you use the whole brush. But when you want to do eyelashes or very specific things on your sketch, then you use the point of it. So it's a very versatile brush. Be good to yourself and do not use the brush that comes with the watercolor pan, because the brush in the watercolor pan is way too small and just not as easy to work with as this. So you'll notice that you have some primary colors. You don't need a pan with piles of colors. These are all the colors you really need to get all kinds of colors on your sketch. But do keep in mind, as we said earlier in the semester, that these colors are relative. And so this red is a kind of a warm red. It's not a blue, it's not a cool red. And so there's probably not ever going to be an opportunity to get a real blue fuchsia pink color with this red. You can mix some blue with this red, but it's still going to tend to stay on the warm side. Other watercolor palettes tend to be on the cool side. So let's talk about human skin. That's a great way to start thinking about how to mix color. Let's just see what we can do just to, you know, just to get Caucasian and African American skin. All skin has some red in it because the blood capillaries are right underneath the skin. That's what gives it a warm tone to it. So there's always going to be a certain amount of red. But in addition to red, let's just put some red down here. In addition to red, there's going to be some orange tones, and there's going to be some yellow tones. And you say, gosh, Deb, that's too orange. Well, you're constantly talking to yourself as you're mixing. And a lot of times, if you just wet your brush, you can dilute it and get it to be into a range that looks more happy for you. But what if you want to get something that's more olive toned? Well, take a little bit of green. And, you know, if you put too much green in, it'll get gray because green is the complementary color of red, right? But you can also mix a little bit of the rich brown in with that, and you start to get into more of a Middle Eastern tone. But what if you want to have, I mean, African American skin is all kinds of different colors of browns. But, you know, you're basically doing the same thing, only adding more intense, rich colors. Cut that, there's a little bit too much red in there. We can cut the red with a little bit of green. You know, we might have that kind of color, maybe mix just a little bit more of a brown with it. You might have, you know, some African American skin tones have a lot of yellow in it. So you might have a deep, rich brown, but then have, you know, warm it up with some yellows. Notice how I'm dipping into all of these at once. You're never going to mess up this yellow container by adding purple to it. The pigment is too strong. The impure extra paints are going to pop right up once you add some water to it. So don't worry about that. But here's a nice kind of warm brown skin tone. So you can see there's just a whole range, and you have the power, but you know, you can see how much of a range you can get just with the proportion of the color that you use. And so I think that's always a good place to start. So let's color her. I'm going to go into an African American skin tone for her, because we oftentimes think of Moliere and a lot of these classic plays from Europe as being Caucasian centered, but obviously you can have African Americans playing any of these roles. And so let's see what we can get with Marianne. I'm going to continue to explore my rich browns and maybe add some orange in there, maybe some red. There's always some red. I'm kind of liking that. So if this is going to be my dark tone, what I want is to go a little bit lighter than that tone by adding a little bit more water to it. And I'm going to use the lighter tone in the dark areas, because if I like it, then I can add darker paint. It keeps my options open, if that makes any sense. But if I don't like it, then I can more easily erase it. Once this dries, I can take a pencil eraser and just get a lot of it out, or just wet my brush and wash a lot of it out. So I'm going to use this lighter brown in the darker areas. Let's say that the light source is coming this way. You know, the stage lights usually come from up above down. You could have the light going straight down. You could have the light coming this way. But usually it's easier to have a sense of a directional light source. It helps to give depth to your figure. So if the light source is coming this way, then this is all going to be in shadow, right? And there's going to be more shadow here. There's going to be some shadow here, just like you do in makeup class. There's going to be some shadow in the eye area. There's going to be some shadow near the hair. This is going to be full of light, so I'm not going to do that. But, you know, she might have some breasts kind of showing through here, since this is such a low neckline. So there might be a little bit of a darkness there. And then there might be a little bit more dark on this side than on this side, right? I try to avoid noses. I just give an indication of the nose tip, but there might be a little bit on this side of the nose, you know, just because the light's hitting on that side. And I might have a little bit at the bottom edge of the nose and maybe at the bottom edge of the lip. Oh, and let's not forget our arms. We're going to have some darker tones on this side. I like to leave some white on the page, because I just think it lets it live more. Everybody has a different style, and you'll develop your own style if you work with this enough. But you can see I've left a little bit of white on the page. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, I kind of like this pretty well. This is going pretty well. So I might go ahead and use up my richer color, and if I like that, then I can just start going into those same areas where I had gone lighter, just to test myself, just to see if I liked it. I always start with a lighter color in the shadow area first. It just seems safer to me. I'm doing these collarbones here. Generally speaking, you don't have hard lines on the body. So I'm looking at this, and even those collarbones are a little bit too hard line. So I might soften the line. Oftentimes you can soften a line by taking some water on your brush, especially if it hasn't dried all the way. And that's a good way to soften it. But you can see that now that I'm taking the lighter, I'm just kind of washing in those darker tones. And oftentimes when it's still wet, it's easier to add some of the rouge. So let's add some rouge over here because she probably has some. So I'm going to take and do ba-bum, ba-bum, and you know, I'm looking at that. Is it too much? Is it too close to the mouth? Yeah, maybe so. So wet your brush and just get some of that water off, and then you can color this in more. Now I'm just seeing what I need to fill in here. I'm gonna lift some of that paint off right where the cheekbone is. And maybe I need to wait and let it dry first. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just let it dry a little bit before I do much more. Now I'm gonna just fill in some of this. And I'm still thinking, well, maybe I need to make it just a little bit darker. So let's see about just sweeping in. But again, look at how I'm still saving a lot of white on the page, just because for me personally, I just think it gives it a little bit more life. And you know, sometimes, you know, the less precious you are with it, you know, just kind of throw something on there. And you know, if you don't like it, wait till it dries, and again, you can erase a lot of it, or you can wash out a lot of it. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit. We still need to accent the eyes and the eyebrows and all of that. Oh, we also need to do her lips. And usually with the lips, you want to have the top lip colored, but very little of the bottom lip colored, because light hits the bottom part of the lip, right? So you're just going to see just the bottom of the lip and not the top part. Well, let's just make a mistake. We were drawing her head and, oh no, I went out of line. Oh my gosh, did I just destroy all, I mean, you saw I spent an hour sketching this, and you're not gonna spend an hour sketching yours, but I was talking. But what can you do? Well, you can blot up a lot of it with a clean towel. You can do that first, just like you do a stain on a carpet. But, you know, you can also wash out a lot of that. And sometimes you'll see beautiful watercolor sketches that just let some of the extra colors just come into the sketch. You see how a lot of that's washing out? And the other thing about watercolor, as opposed to colored pencils, is that it's so easy to just remove. Colored pencils, once they're on there, there's not much you can do about it. You know, you can say, gosh, Deb, that doesn't look like that's coming out to me, but it has come out quite a bit, and I promise you, once that dries, we can probably pick up even more. The secret to making watercolor bend to your will is to have the patience to let it dry, because to know when to add water and when not to add water. So we've got quite a bit of this out already. Or, you know, we might want to say, balance it out and have something over here. You know? Well, there we go. You know, it looks like she's living beyond a space. You rarely have to give up on a rendering. You can almost always fix almost anything if you just understand basic watercolor principles and when to water and when not to water. Chances are most of you, when you first start experimenting with watercolor, you'll have too much water on the brush. Let's have an example. I've loaded up my brush with water, and what color are we going to make her overskirt and her bodice? Oh, what would Mary Ann do? Let's do some kind of a warm red. And so I've got piles of water on my brush, and you'll find if you put all that pile of water on your brush and you try to put it on the paper, it's going to be a puddle, it's going to be a lake. Whereas if you have your scrap paper nearby and you figure out how to get some of that water off your brush, granted you get some of the watercolor off the brush too, but if you get it more into a place where it's not a lake, but it's still loaded on the brush, And again, the light source is coming this way, and I'm putting my lighter color in the shadow area to see if I like it. The breast is fairly flat because of the boning from the corset. Everything is kind of mushed in there. But you can have, you know, a little bit of an indication of fullness. And of course there's going to be more light showing on this side than on this side. And so I'm going to make the upper skirt the same color as her. Actually, you know, I think I might make the skirt a little bit different color because she's so ditzy. She's, you know, the more streamlined and solid color you make something, the more elegant it becomes. So let's try just a different color for her skirt. Just for the sake of time, let's make it some kind of a yellow color. You know, as long as you don't have a pile of water on your brush and you've tested it out over here to make sure you're in control of it rather than it in control of you, then when you throw it on your page, and literally just think of it as throwing it on the page. If you get, oh no, it's gotta be perfect, you're gonna make yourself nervous, and it'll be much harder to, you know, to let it live. Let her live. She needs to live too. And look, I'm just washing right over that mistake. You know, I mean, in some ways, sometimes that can make it look more interesting, as long as the mistake is not the dominant part and the real color is the dominant part. So this is a lighter shade of yellow, and this is a slightly darker shade of yellow because the light source is coming this way. So I'm asking myself if I like this. Yeah, Deb, I think I like it. So let's get a little bit darker for that bodice. Oh, it's kind of a pretty salmon, I think. Now we want to do the inside of the skirt. What color do we want the inside? I mean, we could really make her ditzy and have a third color. Chances are you're probably not going to have a third color though, because you're trying to work with a tight color system for all of your characters. So when in doubt, you can always use a neutral. Neutrals are your friends. People always forget how important neutrals can be. What is a neutral? Any muddy color, anything that's not a clear color. So let's think about some kind of a soft gray, a silver. There's purple silvers, there's blue silvers, there's taupe, you know, kind of gray silvers. I try to, you know, get kind of an interesting color first and then start throwing black at it, because if you just start with black to begin with, then it's going to be kind of a flat color. Now I'm kind of liking that right there. So I'm going to throw that on and see what that looks like. Again, if the light source is coming this way, that's going to be highlighted, right? You would think, oh no, that's dark. But if the light's coming this way, the shadow is really going to be coming right in here, where it's underneath that overskirt. So the overskirt is casting a shadow. That's going to be lighter. And again, as long as you get control of your water amount on your scrap piece of paper, then you'll feel much more empowered to throw it on the page. And literally think of it as just throwing it on the page, just like you would your colored pencil. Only your colored pencil is going to, you know, be there forever, whereas your watercolor will move around if you just add water to it. And, you know, in this case, we've gotten a kind of a purple gray, a real dirty, muddy lavender gray, silver, whatever. And so what's our trim going to be? Well, we've got this center front echelon. What if we did some kind of a light lavender to bring in some of those tones down below? And then if it's got that stripe in it, maybe the stripe is a little bit of purple and, I mean, you will know you already know what your color system is, right, from your color charts. So go back to your color charts and decide. I'm just making this up as I go along. But you've already designed it, so, stay with your design. That's the important thing. And notice how I'm using the tip of the brush to do these stripes that I like so much. Oh, and maybe this same kind of deep, muddy, brown, lavender, or purple color, maybe this is part of the print and talays. And you'll see all kinds of different print and talays, and I'm not going to spend time working out a pattern here, but you get the picture, right? Maybe there's some gold threads in with that print and talays, so maybe there's some really sharp gold. Oh, and that gives me an idea. Maybe the bows are gold. That might kind of tie things in a little bit. And the bows are going to be darker at the bottom, right? Because the light's coming from above. So you have that going on. Notice how I've left a lot of white on the page with the bows. I assume that those bows are shiny. And the more you want shininess, the more white you want to keep. What about the hair? What color hair is she going to have? There's so many different artificial hair colors out now. But let's just make it a traditional African American kind of dark brown or close to black color. And you can see I'm not using pure black. Usually I'll try to get a medium ground, and then if I really need accents, then I'll go into a pure black. So light source is coming this way, so this is all going to be in shadow on this side, right? There's going to be shadow at the bottom of these big curls, these sausage curls. She might have an earring too, but if you have an earring, we're going to have to, let's have it like a pearl earring there. That'll have to be in white. I encourage you, if you have the resources, the financial resources, to use acrylic white. And I'll show you that in a minute. You can see how I'm not doing hair strands. I can't impress upon you how happier you'll be if you don't try to draw individual hair strands. If you draw hair direction and leave highlight and shadow to do the rest of the work for you, you'll be so much happier. Now I'm going to fill this in a little bit more, but while I've got a good quality on my brush, I'm going to come in and do her eyebrows now that the rest of the skin is dry. And I'm going to do her eyelids. Maybe some eyelashes. I can do her pupils. Might she have some eyeshadow? I mean, you did have eyeshadow in 17th century colors. What do we want that to be? We've got some maybe we should have that lavender. If you're restricting yourself to just 2 colors, think about one of those 2 colors to bring in as eyeshadow. And I'm just going to add just, a little bit goes a long way. Notice how I'm not filling it up too much. I'm gonna let that relax a little bit, and then I'm gonna do a little wash. Now that the hair has started to dry a little bit, and I've gotten a little bit of water off my brush, I can come back in and color a little bit more of that white. You know, just so that it's not all, you know, because if you have too much white on the page, then it looks shiny rather than, you know, like hair. Now I can come in with my rich black and really underscore, because I know that I like where these shadow lines were. I always leave myself wiggle room. You see how now we're getting into the really deep black. But you know, if you really look at African American hair, it's not solid black, it's got highlights. Now that that part is dry, I'm gonna just soften that shadow that I put in there. I'm just gonna soften it up just a little bit more. And you know, I promise you, if you let it, your sketch will speak to you. It will tell you what it wants. Don't worry too much about, you know, oh, is this right? Is this wrong? It's not about right or wrong. It's about what that character needs. If you were this character in the play, what would you want? Usually, if you tailor it to, you know, to your own personal values, you'll go further as an artist than if you just try to use what everybody else tells you to use. You need to know rules for sure, but rules are eventually made to be broken. Okay, so now Jacqueline and I are going to go get some acrylic white. Actually, before we do that, this is bugging me. I'm just going to soften this white highlight just a little bit. There. That's getting better. Oh, and then, you know, for this print and tallis, we might add some depth to that, you know, to that pattern, whatever that pattern is. There might be something that's more self-conscious. Seems like it wants something. You know, those print and tallis patterns were quite, you know, a hallmark of that period. And now that I'm seeing that, I'm thinking, well, maybe these lines can be. There we go. And then maybe the shoes are that strong purple. Purple and yellow are complementary colors, right? So, you know, complementary colors can be very effective with each other as long as it stays in your color palette. Don't forget your color palette. Don't just put a color on there because you like it, like I'm doing. I'm just doing a demonstration. You've got your design already figured out, so stay with your design. Don't make it up. Unless you're prepared to change all of your color system for all of your other characters, because it's all one show, right? Oh, and maybe, now that I'm seeing this, maybe there's some brown stripes in the middle of that. Maybe that's, you know, some kind of ruching or something to help control it. Ooh, and then maybe, you know, you can always use neutrals. What if this all becomes brown? Notice how I'm not so weirded out about getting it just absolutely precise. You'll find costume plates that are gorgeous, exquisite, definite. Jacqueline works that way. She likes to have everything very, very precise. And, you know, if you want to be a Greg Barnes, go in that direction. But you can also get quite a bit, especially if you've got 18 more of these to get done for a big show like you're in town. You can get a lot said in less time if you just, you know, if you just have a basic idea of what you want out of it. And what color are we going to make those shoe roses? What color do we want? Maybe a red. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jacqueline says yes. I don't know if you can hear her, but she's saying yes. she's just kind of all over the place, isn't she? She's just, oh no, what am I going to do? I have to listen to my father. But I want to marry Valère, but I want to have an argument with him because I'm just so silly. Maybe she has a red heel. We talked about red heels, didn't we? That were only reserved only for the king, but maybe she's so special and silly, maybe she gets one too. Okay, we're gonna take a break, and well, I'll come back and show you the advantages of acrylic white if you can buy a tube of it for yourself, because you will find that you love it for all kinds of reasons. Okay, so we are back. The other trick that you have, if you choose to purchase it, is your handy acrylic paint. Usually it comes in about this size tube, but acrylic paint is different, way different from watercolor because it is plastic. It's just like polyester. And the beauty of acrylic white paint is that it is opaque, whereas there is no white watercolor. Sometimes you'll see Chinese white in a watercolor pan, and it will give you just a little bit of a white. But if you really want a sharp white, then you want to use acrylic white. Just remember that if you use this, once you put this on the page, watercolor will not go on top of it. So you have to know exactly where you want it and be willing to live with it there forever, kind of like colored pencils. They do the same thing. Once they're there, they're there. So we've got our white here, and this is going to come in very handy for a lot of the white accents that you all have for this period. Remember, oftentimes your collars are white, your shirts, your undershirts, or your women's chemises are white. Sometimes your cuffs are white, and the jewelry, the pearls are white. And so let's start with our pearl, because that's, I added this little bit of a shadow right here, and maybe that's just enough. Maybe that says enough of pearl just by itself, because the white of the page is still white. Look what happens if you just throw with the tip of your brush. If you throw just a little bit more of that white, it just stands out just a little bit more. I don't know if you can see that with the camera, but there is just a little bit more white there. Now, another place where it might be handy is on this shirt, this chemise shirt that we've got. White always has a shadow to it. The shadow can be a pale yellow shadow. The white, you might not see it in the camera, but the white, the shadow of the white from this cap has a little bit of an ecru color to it. What I'm seeing is as ecru, or maybe a gray white. What we want to do to help define this shirt before, and I also added a little bit of skin tone so that we could show, I put some skin tones up into the sleeve so that we could show that the sleeve is a little bit on the sheer side and we're actually seeing some skin underneath it. But we can also add a little bit of a shadow color. Also clean your brush well after acrylic white, because it will ruin your brush if it dries onto your brush. So let's just find a shadow color here on our palette. See if we can get something going with get a muddy color here. Yeah, that's getting good. So again, the light source is coming this way, so I am going to shape this shadow on the outside. There's going to be some shadow at the bottom of the fullness of the sleeve, right? There's going to be some shadow at the bottom here. I don't know how much it's showing up on the camera because it's really light on the page. But we're just adding just a little bit of shadow there. So now what we can do is take and load up some acrylic with our brush and put this bright white on the highlighted sections of the sleeve, which will be definitely right here because that's highlighted. There could be some highlights right here. Some highlights into the folds. some highlights into here. Sometimes you can even dry brush your acrylic. You can put it on your brush, spread your bristles apart, and dry, what we call dry brush. Sometimes you guys have maybe have done that in your scene painting. It's the same basic idea where you can get, you know, more of a fabric quality to it. But right now I'm just concerned about just getting a, you know, a sense of fullness in my sleeves. There's going to be less highlight on this side, right? Because the light's coming this way. And then we had some of those ruffles that we've kind of lost with all the washes, but the ruffles are here. I'm going to just kind of flick some strong whites here. Shape those ruffles just a little bit more. Do some ruffles on this side. Anyway, I mean, it gives you a little bit more of a sense of, I mean, it just picked up some of that fabric a little bit more. But again, once you put that on there, you really can't put watercolor on top of it. It just kind of sits on the top. It doesn't do much. But it can be handy to give you just a little bit more. Now, what about lace? You know, there's a lot of lace in this show. And if you want lace, one of the easiest ways to get it, let's make this bottom skirt, this lavender skirt with some lace on top of it. You just take your brush and do some flicks with your brush. Look at that. And you think, oh gosh, this is way too easy. Lace, how can lace be so easy? Well, it really is, because once you've got that on your brush and you've got it transferred and you've got just these blobs, then just come back with your pencil and just kind of underscore some of the lace with your pencil, and you've got some wonderful sections of lace. You might even add a little bit more to some sections. I mean, what is lace? It's just raised surfaces. So there's a whole lot you can do. And that's so simple. You can make your lace ruffles. I mean, I've already done some sharp strokes, so I can't really do it now, but you know, if we wanted to do these ruffles, which you might for some of your characters, say you've got ruffles like that, and then they're maybe longer in the back. You know, again, start by just giving your ruffle some shadow colors. I like to just mix up some junky colors from my palette, you know, just because they're already muddy, and you can get them even more muddy by just throwing a bunch of that stuff together and get a good shadow color going. Then, you know, color that shadow color in there. And then once that's dry, we do have to have the patience to let it dry. Just throw that lace on there. Just, lace can be really fun and quick and easy. Your eye doesn't see the exact patterns of the lace. All it sees are the bumpy spots of it. Some people might get very intimidated with lace when actually it's probably one of the easiest things you can do. And it's better if you wait till it dries. I'm doing it while it's wet, but you can see how, you know, you're just kind of shaping the form of that lace just a little bit more with your pencil, encouraging it. Maybe the darker, there's going to be a shadow where the underside, you know, there's an arm here, but there's an underside that's in shadow maybe a little bit more than the top part. Here's the arm coming out. There's a really nice lace and very simple. Here we could add some pearl necklaces if we wanted. We could even make those bows even a little shinier. You know, Purnell is so upset about them. Why not make them really stand out? You know, really give them some brightness. Maybe there's some white, shiny rose ribbon down here with the shoes. Anyway, that's it. Now you can do 10 of these, and I promise you they won't take nearly as long. Okay, so, you know, as we were talking about earlier with the wampas, you know, here's the eyeline wampa, the shoulder wampa, the chest wampa, the hip line wampa, you know, the whole body is full of wampas. Just remember from Deb Bell, this quote right here on this pencil, if you can see the wampas, you can see the world.